Hey everyone, Asta Heel here, back with another video. And so recently DC Dual Force brought out a new set of cards, the Halloween set of cards. And what I thought I'd do today is give a little bit of a character background and a character history and some facts about some of these characters that are now in the game, because there's a few deep cuts in there, I'll admit. Some that I kind of had to look up, like Lord Deathman and Andrew Bennett, I wasn't too familiar with. So I thought I'd do a little bit of a video where I go through each character, give a few facts about them, then when you play them, you know a little bit more about the characters. I thought that'd be a cool thing to do. So hopefully you like this kind of content. It's a little bit different to the gameplay stuff that I normally do. If you can give me a like and a subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. And so I hope you enjoy these character intros, and I'll catch you in the next one. So we'll start with the new leader, the Batman Who Laughs. I'm sure most of you probably have heard of him. DC have been pushing this character quite a bit lately. So he was created by Scott Snyder, who most of you probably know is quite a well-known DC Comics writer. And he is a Batman from a different Earth who does not mind killing people. Like, he will kill people, this Batman. And the main sort of character trait with this Batman is that he experiences the one bad day that Joker refers to in The Killing Joke, when he says it only takes one bad day to turn someone into like the Joker. So the Joker in that world finds out that he's dying, and he just goes on an absolute spree, kills Jim Gordon, blows up a hospital, infects children with a toxin, and kills all these children. Like, it's really, really bad. So the Batman, he kills Joker and then realizes that something's changed within him. He's taken that one life. Going forward, he sort of acts like he's not going to kill, but he kills like the rest of his Bat family, and he kills like Lois Lane and Clark Kent and people like that. And then he comes to the main universe and the main Bruce Wayne Batman that we all know, and points out how that Batman and that Bruce is the worst of all of them, because he hasn't really helped his city. Other Bruces will have used their wealth and used their money to raise the city up and make it more like Metropolis, whereas our Batman just fights criminals and the city doesn't really improve. And then he doesn't kill the criminals. So they go to prison, they go to Arkham, then they get out, and then they just do the same thing all over again. So he's kind of pointing out the flaws in the current Batman. So he's one of those villains where it's like, oh, he's a villain, but he's kind of got a point. And he's not crazy like the Joker is crazy. Like, he has all the mental capacity that Bruce Wayne has. He's a master strategist and all this stuff, but he does obviously have the insanity of Joker kind of driving him as well, which makes him even more kind of formidable. But that is the Batman Who Laughs. Okay, so next up is the Gentleman Ghost. Now, Gentleman Ghost is someone who I have heard of, but I don't think I've ever read anything that they're in, and I don't really know much about the character kind of going in, so I had to look this up a bit. So Gentleman Ghost, he's from the Victorian era, and he's a highwayman, a classic kind of British London Victorian highwayman, like Dick Turpin and people of that era. So he was killed by a thief, and then he was cursed to wander the earth until the spirit of his killer moves on to the next plane of existence. So he is, a ghost in the literal sense, and he's kind of forced into that life from his time as kind of like a highwayman. His real name is Jim Craddock, and he was the son of an English gentleman, and he becomes this kind of notorious highwayman and robber who terrorizes England in the 19th century. And then, so in a lot of his stories, he does encounter other ghosts and ghosts of other highwaymen, and he eventually goes to the US, and he encounters like gunslingers and legendary people from that time, like Nighthawk and people like that. And then he does run into quite a lot of different villains. So he's paired with Batman, the Atom, Flash, Teen Titans, and Stargirl. His main adversaries, though, are Hawkman and Hawkgirl, which I guess makes sense since they reincarnate and are historical figures themselves. They'll run into a lot more of these historical figures, like Gentleman Ghost, who's from the 19th century. One little fact about him is during Infinite Crisis, he did join Alex Luthor Jr.'s Secret Society of Supervillains. He fought the original Green Lantern, Alan Scott, and placed him into a coma. Okay, so next we move on to Etrigan the Demon. I'm sure most of you know Etrigan the Demon. He's been in quite a few things. I've read quite a few things with him in them, but it's good to get a character background of these as well. He's a really popular character in DC and someone that I really like as well. He was actually created by Jack Kirby, who created the New Gods and Darkseid, and then over on the Marvel side he created Thanos and people like that. He's a demon from hell. Even though he is usually kind of on the side of good, he still kind of has that demon and that background in him when he needs to. So he is the son of the demon Belial and the half-brother of the wizard Merlin. So he's from Arthurian times, King Arthur, all that kind of area. So Merlin found a way to bond Etrigan with a man called Jason Blood. So that bond was created to control Etrigan. So he used this bond to control Etrigan and ironically use him to stop his enemy Morgaine Le Fey, who we'll talk about a little bit later. So that made Jason Blood immortal, which is, you know, both a gift and a curse. So Jason decided to move to modern day Gotham City and become a demonologist. There have been a few attempts to separate Etrigan and Jason Blood, most of them not successful, or a couple only successful for a short period of time, but then they always kind of merge back and have that duality of man kind of character approach. So the New 52 did retcon Etrigan quite a bit. So Etrigan had been living through the Dark Ages. He got bonded to Jason and they were recruited into a new team called the Demon Knights, which is a bit of a ragtag group of heroes set in Arthurian times with King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table and all those kind of guys, which is a good comic and a good read. I read it a few years ago and I definitely recommend it. So following Etrigan, we'll move on to Morgaine Le Fey. She's from around the same time. I think she appeared in the same comic, the Demon #1, that Etrigan also appeared in for the first time, and she was also created by Jack Kirby, who created Etrigan and a lot of the other really famous DC and Marvel characters that I mentioned before. So she's an ancient sorceress, again from Arthurian times. She's gifted in the arts of black magic. She is a sister of one of the Madame Xanadu's. If you don't know Madame Xanadu, there's been a few different versions of that character, and she was also the sister of the Lady in the Lake, which is a Arthurian kind of legend. And then in the latter days of Camelot, as I mentioned before, Merlin merged Etrigan the Demon with Jason Blood to defend the kingdom against Morgaine Le Fey, who had started trying to assault the kingdom of Camelot and kind of take over for herself. And so Jason Blood and Morgaine Le Fey had been allies, but after Jason Blood was bonded to Etrigan, they became enemies after that. And so she's known as going out through history and practicing her dark arts. She retains her youth for many centuries, and she's always kind of seeking new power, taking over power and finding kingdoms that she can rule. Okay, next up is Felix Faust, who some of you might have heard of. He was actually in the Constantine TV show from like 2014, I think it was. He appeared in that show, so some of you might know him from there. But he is human, but he was born with innate magical abilities, so he's a kind of sorcerer type, more dark arts type thing like Morgaine Le Fey. And his kind of background is he got into a battle with another character called Dr. Mist, and he lost a lot of his power in that battle, and so his motivation and his kind of drive is getting his power back that he lost in the battle with Dr. Mist. Felix Faust's origin does date back to 5000 BC, where he's from kind of an African empire. He does have two children, one called Sebastian and one called Fauna. He's been associated with many kind of groups across DC Comics, so the Crime Champions, the Conclave, Injustice League, and Secret Society of Supervillains. So he did make a literal deal with the devil, which made him immortal, and he's kind of, obsessed with his pursuit of power and his pursuit of mystical knowledge and knowledge of the dark arts. Okay, next is Lord Deathman, and Lord Deathman is a really fun character. He is a Japanese gangster who resides in Gotham City, and he's really skilled at yoga, and so what he can do is he can enter a death-like state using this yoga ability and faking his own death. And so he has a costume that resembles a skeleton and a black cloak that is permanently grafted to his skin. So what he would do is he would go out and commit crimes, and then if Batman confronted him or the GCPD confronted him, what he'd do is he would fake his death before he was, sent to prison or put on trial or anything, let himself be buried alive, and then what he would do then is he would escape his grave, escape his tomb, then just go back to his crime sprees, and then when he got caught again, he would just fake his own death again and do the same thing over and over again, which I think, he's a minor character, but I think that's a really fun idea, and I'm really glad he's in this game actually. Okay, and the last one is Andrew Bennett, who I didn't really know anything about, and I was surprised to learn is actually a vampire. I had no idea this character was a vampire. So he's from Queen Elizabeth I era, 16th century. So he was part of her entourage, and he would go on these late night rides. And on one of the late night rides, he was bitten by a vampire, and becomes a vampire himself, but he's known for being a good vampire, I guess, and so he will resist his vampiric nature and he will protect humanity from other vampires. So he does have a lot of vampiric powers that you would have seen in kind of other media. He can turn himself into a bat, he can turn himself into mist, he can turn himself into a wolf. He's got superior strength, superior healing, and some kind of limited hypnosis and telepathy powers as well. Now, Andrew Bennett did have a wife called Mary who was a vampire herself. She was also in the Queen's entourage as a maiden, and she had a plan to kind of wage war against humanity, and Andrew Bennett's main kind of story is stopping her and stopping the other vampires from attacking humanity and him helping protect humanity along the way. Anyway, I hope you like this video. This is something a bit different for me, something I kind of want to start doing more of, a bit more DC Comics background and character histories and that kind of thing, and if I can tie it into Dual Force, then that's even better. So yeah, this is the first crack at this kind of thing for me. I'll keep working on them and keep doing them, but I do hope you enjoyed this video, and I will catch you all in the next one.